In the month of June this year, India had said that US President Donald Trump had accepted Prime Minister Narendra Modi's invitation to visit India for the Quad Leaders Summit later this year. But now, according to a New York Times report, Trump may not be visiting India this fall. There is, however, no confirmation from India or the US on the proposed visit. Both countries were expected to complete the negotiations over the bilateral trade agreement and wrap up the deal during Trump's visit to India. India was one of the first countries to start discussions over a trade deal with the US way back in the month of February. But President Trump has taken exception to India's purchase of Russian oil and levied an extra 25% tariff on top of the reciprocal tariff of 25% imposed on India. US halted talks and held back from sending its team to New Delhi for another round of negotiations scheduled on the 25th of August. The report of Trump not visiting India is highlighting how diplomatic ties have been worsening between his administration and PM Modi's government. A detailed New York Times report titled "The Nobel Prize and a Testy Phone Call" outlines how relations between the two leaders steadily deteriorated. The tipping point happens to be the repeated and disputed claims that Trump had resolved the India-Pakistan conflict earlier this year. According to the report, tensions escalated after a June 17th phone call where Trump allegedly suggested Modi to nominate him for the Nobel Peace Prize, pointing to his role in the ceasefire. A suggestion that reportedly left Prime Minister Modi deeply frustrated. The report also pointed to Trump's decision to impose a 25% tariff on India for purchasing Russian oil, suggesting the move was punitive rather than policy-driven. Now, with Trump opting out of the Quad summit, the future of US-India strategic cooperation remains uncertain, even as India continues to strengthen its role in the multipolar world order. We have Professor Swaran Singh, Center for International Politics at JNU, now joining us. So Professor Swaran Singh, thank you for taking time out to be with us here on News9. This is a situation that is evolving as we speak, but things are only going from bad to worse. Now we understand, this is not confirmation, but reports are telling us that Trump is cancelling his visit to India for the Quad summit. This at a time when Putin has confirmed his annual visit to India.
That is true. I think this was in anticipation and building up to come to this. Otherwise, more than 40 times making a claim which is not just not endorsed by India, but is beyond a point contested by India, most modestly, of course, is a clear reflection of that obsession that President Trump is showcasing for the Nobel Peace Prize. And for that, going to any extent of counting 6 to 7 conflicts that he has resolved, including the military confrontation between India and Pakistan early May this year. And then, of course, changing the statistics of what was India's losses, even after both the Chief of Defense Staff, Chief of Army Staff, have done detailed explanation of what happened during that 4 days. So this is very unusual. It's not an easy way to respond. India had kept patience. What New York Times is saying that this happened on 17th of June during the phone call, 35-minute phone call of Prime Minister Narendra Modi with President Trump, which the American side has not even acknowledged that there was a phone conversation of that kind between them. So I think it's just a clash of personal egos of President Trump and his team. And India tried to skirt any confrontation, but beyond a point, India has tried to clarify that it's a standard half a century, understanding which is across party lines that India does not accept any third party role, and that any third party role did not take place, and that is the modest submission India has tried to make. And since now President Trump sees Prime Minister refusing to recommend his name for Nobel Peace Prize as the only reason as to why he's not getting the Nobel Peace Prize, it's a knee-jerk, angry reaction rather than any thought-out, well-calculated policy response, that he first decided to slap 25% of penalty on Indian exports in terms of raising the tariffs, and 25% of what he calls retaliatory tariffs. Both are completely, beyond understanding, defy any logic. But he's not satisfied with that, and now he's saying that he is not going to come and attend the Quad Summit meeting, which is only further accelerating his own isolation, his own sort of being seen as perhaps not in command of his American global leadership. Because just before that, you see, only day before yesterday, Indian Prime Minister was in Japan, and Prime Minister Ishiba and President clearly issued a statement saying that both remain committed to free and open and prosperous Indo-Pacific region. So in that sense, Japan clearly stands with India, and I'm sure Australia does as well. So it's a gradual progression of President Trump's own retreat from the Indo-Pacific region or from the Quad as such, which in any case is going to further expand the space for Russia and China, and along with India. The triangular Monday meeting, coming Monday, the meeting is going to happen between President Putin, President Xi Jinping, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi, is going to create greater vacuum for them to step in and take those responsibilities of ensuring peace and stability in the region. And India, of course, will continue to work with other stakeholders in the Indo-Pacific region. India has major stakes in that region in that sense. So it's something which will boomerang on United States global leadership. Of course, there will be some impact on India as well. I won't deny that at all. But it's fundamentally undermining the whole internal cohesion. It's an erosion of the internal cohesion of Quad, in which case
So
India
it's
was the
also
only
undermining the
non.
Quad grouping per se, isn't it? Whatever may be the case, in terms of with India, this is a Quad summit that we're talking about, where India has invited the US. This not just undermines, this undermines the Quad as well.
Absolutely, because India is the only non-military ally member. Australia and Japan both are alliance partners of United States, and those three nations can continue to work in any format they want to work. Quad became interesting forum because India joined it, and India has been seen as a voice of restraint in quadrilateral security framework, and not to make it really very narrowly focused only on anti-China campaigns. And beyond a point, President Joe Biden had to create AUKUS because India said we don't want to see Indo-Pacific being militarized, and Quad will not deal with traditional military collaborations. At best, it will deal with non-traditional security. Otherwise, work on critical technologies, on pandemics, on all kinds of other soft areas, largely going as far as non-traditional security. So India's presence there was, in fact, giving a very, very different persona and legitimacy to Quad, which stands clearly undermined. Which does not mean that there will be no impact on India. I think India's economic relationship with the United States gets more complicated. There will be a diplomatic fallout in terms of trade negotiations not moving anywhere. And in that sense, India's exports of about $60 billion to United States will get impacted. We'll have to find a certain amount of diversification, and in the long run, this could actually also mean certain amount of geopolitical realignments. And we are noticing already, at least Russia and China are extremely excited to see India, United States tensions ratcheting up and continuing. They want to, in their own mindset, wean India away from United States and bring it into their own fold, where China and Russia already have what they call no limits partnership, and they want to get India on board on it. And that kind of body language and language is going to really become much more visible in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization deliberations, and could get reflected even in the Tianjin Declaration that comes out from there. It will have, of course, economic ramifications as well, because if President Trump continues to, go ahead and do more of the same, which means ratcheting up, trade tariff hikes, and he thinks this is a kind of weaponization that is going to help him, make America great again. And then it's not going to stop only in punishing India. It is going to be, sort of likewise pushed on other countries. For example, Kazakhstan, which is sitting there in Shanghai Cooperation Organization, has also received similar treatment. So in that sense, there's going to be economic fallout. There is going to be perhaps to some extent domestic politics fallout in India as well. Of course, the opposition will use whatever President Trump is saying and talking in asking questions to the party in power in that sense. So it's not to say that India is absolutely, completely not impacted by what President Trump is doing. After all, he's the leader of world's most powerful nation, the largest and most innovative economy on the planet. So, if such strange, unpredictable policies are pursued where personal anger becomes the guiding light for determining bilateral relations, then I think it's going to impact everybody else around the world, impact India, but it's, I think, most going to impact the credibility of American global
Right.
leadership and of
Absolutely.
course everyday life in United States.
Professor Swaran Singh, Center for International Politics at JNU, thank you for taking time out with us here on News 9.